There's a room here in the Senate named after Strom Thurmond. To hate him is wrong. And maybe my ego got too caught up that if I stood here, maybe, just maybe I could break this record of the man who tried to stop the rights upon which I stand. I'm not here, though, because of his speech. I'm here despite his speech. I'm here because as powerful as he was, the people were more powerful. But I remind you, all those people who believe like me that we've got to redeem the dream, turn again to John Lewis, because you all know the story, my colleagues, of when the man that beat him savagely, drew blood, cracked bones. Decades later, he was a congressman. That man brought his grandson with him to ask for forgiveness from John Lewis. I heard about this story when I was in the car in Georgia with him. What did you do, John? This man that so viciously beat you, wounded you, bruised you, battered you. What did you do when he came to ask you for forgiveness? What did you do? And a good Christian man of faith, simply said, every one of us needs mercy. Every one of us needs redemption. I forgave him. I hugged him. We wept. And I looked at the boy. This nation needs you too. John?
Would the senator yield for a question?
Chuck Schumer, it's the only time in my life I can tell you no.
I just want to tell you a question. Do you know you have just broken the record? Do you know how proud this caucus is of you? Do you know how proud America is of you?
Wow. That was truly incredible.
Yeah, I love Cory Booker. I think that everyone who's watched every episode of Concepts of a Pod so far will know that because I try to mention him once an episode. This was such an incredible moment, and I hope people understand that this wasn't just Cory Booker breaking the record for longest speech on the Senate floor, but that he broke the record, which was previously held by at the time, Democratic senator from South Carolina who was filibustering against the Civil Rights Act. There's a lot of poetic justice right now that Cory Booker, a black man from New Jersey who is a wonderful senator, just beat a racist white man who was against his rights.
Yeah, and I just want to say a special thank you to the over 100 of our supporters who were with us on the live stream to watch this moment take place, and over 700 people joined us at some point today to tune in for this historic speech, and it was actually funny this morning because it's April 1st, which happens to be not only April Fool's, but the anniversary of when New Digital Now launched with an April Fool's joke text. And I started sending an anniversary text of that and realized very quickly watching Senator Booker this morning that that just wasn't the mood for today. As I think, Shayna, you posted somewhere something about April Fool's is canceled because
every day has been a joke so far. Yup, that's correct.
And honestly, I think to turn it on its head, the joke is that for once, it seems like Democrats have their shit together and it feels like we're starting something here. And so grateful that all of you can be here with us. We also have today with us Liam and Jerry from the Blue Anchor Project, who have been starting quite a bit of their own good trouble up in Maine, and we're excited to tell you more about that. But first, just want to get everyone's reactions to this historic day.
Oh gosh, it's kind of weird to say that we're living through history and to try to witness it because every single day is living through history. But I feel that what we just watched was the beginning of standing up and taking back our power from the dictator in office right now. I think this is a watershed moment that will be known for history. I think that we have just witnessed what people will be reading in textbooks. I think, hopefully, it's the ability for the Democratic Party to actually make a change and make a difference. Though we know that historically they have opportunities like this and they fall flat, so one can hope and through our continued actions on the ground, I think, and through our partnership, I think we just have to ensure the Democratic Party stays on point about this.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, let's not assume anything's going to fall flat just yet. I mean, history's still being made here. And I think more than that, it's really a good blueprint for what Democrats can do as we figure out how to continue this momentum. Because what I found really interesting was I was watching this all day. I was tuning into CNN all day. I was turning into MSNBC all day. If you were watching cable news, you would not have known that this was happening. And I mean, I got to go on now. Maybe they're covering it now that he broke the record. But if they are, I think it'll only prove the point that if we're going to be able to stand up, if we're going to be able to fight back, we need to find new and innovative ways to make media, to make news, to make history.
Oh, for sure. I listened to just the history of Strom Thurmond and the Civil Rights Bill and whatnot, and I was 11 years old when that happened. So back then we were watching, nightly television programs about Vietnam, and we were watching civil rights marches. This was on the non-faux news, where news reporters just kind of read what was on the sheet in front of them and then showed you some pictures of what was really happening. And it was unvarnished truth, and little kids like me were able to watch it on TV. So we actually knew what was happening. Mom and dad might have to explain this or that, through their lens, but we knew these were big things. We saw police hosing down marchers with huge fire water hoses. I mean, we just saw that with our own eyes, and that was like sitting through. So when he's up there talking about Strom Thurmond trying to kill the civil rights bill, it's a pretty phenomenal declaration. I'm glad he mentioned mercy, though. Did you catch that?
Mm-hmm.
He was
Yes.
really intent on that. That's key, I think, to what we're living through today.
Yeah, and it's actually that story he told about John Lewis and the man who beat him coming with his grandson to ask forgiveness decades later. I remember reading that story in John Lewis's book around the time he died, and it stuck with me. And Jerry, I also think it's interesting what you said about TV too, because I actually did really quickly go just check on CNN, MSNBC. Of course, they're covering the breaking news that this big record has just been broken, and it's like, I think the minute he crossed the 15-hour mark and I realized he started at 7 p.m. and the record would be at 7 p.m. the next day, he's doing this in prime time. This is brilliant. And I'm sure all the networks are now cutting to this big record being broken in prime time. And Democrats, we need more of this.
Yeah, we should be doing this every single day. To be honest, they need to not stop talking. They need to do a scandal like Millie, just like the continuous talking. Ask the questions that take 25 hours to ask a question, because you can do that.
My mom brought up Scandal to me today, and it's funny because I was talking about West Wing with a bunch of people too, because I think that's where they inspired the idea of asking these questions. But the fact that this is breaking through to people outside of our political microsphere is another sign that it really is working. But before we get too much into that, Shayna, I know you have some personal experience with Senator Booker that I think you wanted to take a minute to talk about. So
I do. He's my favorite legislator on the planet. I had the honor of getting to work with Cory Booker when he ran for president in 2019, 2020. And I don't remember last time I wrote a letter. I wrote like a physical letter that's multiple pages that I want to share on here. I'm going to try really hard not to get emotional talking about it, but Cory Booker is someone who has never wavered from his stances, and he cares about everybody, no matter who you are. So this is a love letter to Cory Booker. I want to be Cory Booker when I grow up. We met for the first time over 6 years ago at a bar in Iowa City. I was 19. I had to be snuck into the bar by a friend, but she knew my life would change the moment I met him. After his speech to the room, I squeezed my way over to the senator through the crowd and told him how I'd been working in politics for about a year or so, and that I was a field organizer, and that few politicians, let alone people, impress me and have my full respect and support. We talked for a few more minutes, and he spoke to me as if I was the only person in the entire room. And these are words I'm never, ever going to forget in my entire life. I'm going to remember you, and I want to see you grow and do so much good in this country, and I know you will. You're so cool, and I feel like it's really an honor for me to meet you. That is what Cory Booker said to me First time we'd ever met. We'd only spoken for a couple of minutes, but it stuck with me ever since. Moments later, the denim jacket was born. And if you know the lore of the denim jacket, Cory Booker's the one who started it. I asked him to sign the jacket that I'm wearing right now, actually. Here's his signature right here.
Did he draw that smiley face?
He did draw that smiley face. He actually technically signed my jacket twice. This is the jacket that I've had for the last 8 years. I've worn it to every protest I've been to. I've worn it multiple times when I've been canvassing. And this jacket has been signed by over 20 of, I believe, some of the best legislators in this country, including former President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris. This jacket's very special to me, and Cory Booker's very special to me because he is the one who revolutionized what my life was going to be and my career. It all started just because he told me that he thought I was cool and that he believed in me.
Wow.
Who knew that that was going to be like the real start of my life? A few months later, I committed to work for him for the Iowa caucuses, and I campaigned for him until mid-February when he dropped out. Every time that he has been traveling around the country, no matter where I am, one of his staff members or Cory himself will reach out to me and will invite me to whatever event that he's hosting so I can go see him. And one of my favorite things about him is that he remembers every person that he meets. And every time he walks into a room, and if he sees that I'm there, he will drop what he's doing and he will come over and say hello to me and give me a hug. Well, he'll give me a hug and then say hello in that very specific order.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and it's special to me though, because if you know him, you know that he doesn't just drop conversations with people. It's been I think about a year and a half, 2 years since I've gotten to see him in person. But he calls me almost every year on my birthday or texts me, tells me happy birthday. He follows me on Instagram. He's someone who's not just like a politician to me. He's someone who is, I would really truly consider a friend. Obviously not like my best friend. I wish we could talk every day. But like I said at the beginning, when I grow up, I want to be Cory Booker. He's my hero. Fuck. I'm not gonna cry. He's one of my heroes. And when I look at my life and who I've looked up to in my life, I felt like I haven't had a lot of role models. He's one of them. I'm not gonna cry. I'm gonna get through this. He's someone who I know who's going to stand up and fight for everybody, no matter who you are. Whenever he walks into a room and gives a speech, if he quotes the Bible, he'll also quote the Torah and he'll say it in Hebrew, and he'll also quote the Quran and say it in Arabic. He cares about everyone and everything equally. And a few of his slogans during his campaign were love over hate, rise, and hope, hype, hustle. And that's something that I think like political slogans can be really cheesy sometimes, but those are things and ideals that he's always lived with and shown to people and put into all of his staff members. And even though it was only for a few months, I'm so proud to have worked with Cory Booker. And I don't know if anyone will ever make me as proud as I've been on a job. And I really hope that I get the honor of working with him again soon. Love, Shayna. So that's my little love letter to Senator Cory Booker, who I didn't know would change my life in so many ways. And he's changed so many other people's lives. And I hope they know that and how special he is.
Cheers to that. What a wonderful experience you had.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cheers to Cory Booker. I know that I'm not the only person that he is really special to. If you ask anyone who's ever interacted with him or ever worked with him, they would say even more than what I said in here, would probably cry a lot more than I did. But something I know that all of us can agree upon here, and everybody in the world, I would confidently say this, there's no one that dislikes Cory Booker. Even if they disagree with his opinions, I've never met a single person, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green Party, literally anything, who dislikes Cory Booker.
Wow, and that's rare in politics, and really just that.
Well, he builds awareness just doing this, and what inspires voters more than anything else and educates voters more is awareness. And so even with Blue Anchor, I mean, what we're doing initially is trying to build awareness so that people do sign up to vote, so that they do show up to vote, and so that they know what they're voting for when they get to the voting booth. This is a lighthouse for an entity like us, and I hope that awareness really grows in this country with actions like what Cory Booker took today.
I think it will. I think to kind of bump off of what Shayna was saying, I've met him as well a couple times. First time when he just launched his presidential campaign. I think it was his second ever stop It was in North Conway, New Hampshire, and I traveled all the way from UMaine, so a good 4.5 hour drive, I'm pretty sure. And it was so cool. He remembered everybody by name. And I have this amazing photo of him, and it's just him and I smiling with each other. And he wanted to get to know me immediately. Then, because at the time I was part of College Dems, so I was like one of the few College Dems that like actually represented the state at things. Young people didn't do anything back then in the party structure. But besides that, then a second time, I think it was later in 2019, he came to Portland and I got to see him again and he remembered exactly who I was. And that was so cool. It was so fascinating. And I haven't had the opportunity to meet him again, but I hope that I do have the opportunity to, because he's just one of those, he's a very rare, as we're saying, politician, that he's a human, you know? He's not just this fake facade of what people want them to be. That's genuinely who he is.
Is it too much to ask for that from all of our representatives? I mean, as much as I don't think anyone can be that good, he is clearly the gold standard, the North Star for what all of us can and should aspire to, but can't we at least be halfway there? Like, I mean, I know you...
So.
Yeah, I know you guys have some experience with your representatives up there in Maine who...
Well, it's not just Maine. We're going through the Northeast. And, you know, we do have great legislators from New York to Connecticut to Massachusetts and New Hampshire and Maine. But they're not all willing to meet their constituents in person at this particular time because they have probably voted on things that people don't agree with them with for good reasons. It's not easy to get some of our legislators in a room with their constituents these days.
Well, some of them are just bad legislators. And so, like, for instance, we've been paying attention to Jared Golden and Stephen Lynch. So Jared Golden is the representative from Maine's 2nd Congressional District, and he was the sole Democrat that voted for the Trump budget in the House. Also, just to put into context, he is a veteran, and he voted for VA cuts. In the Northeast, he has one of the highest Social Security benefactors that he represents, and he voted against Social Security. And then now he's hiding, fully hiding, will not speak to anybody. It took about a couple weeks of us pressuring him through the news just to be able to have him state, and I quote, any event that is a town hall or public event being held, anybody who goes to one of those things, they are buzzy and politically motivated, and if anybody tries to claim it as not that, they are political operatives there to ruin everything or something along those lines. And
Jared, we just want to talk to you. You know, we just want to talk to you, dude.
My God.
It's like, darling, I know you. Like, for the love of God, talk. You love to talk. So, like, how about you just, like, talk to people? And of course, then they said in the statement that they want to have genuine conversations with people, which is the funniest thing, because if anybody has been to one of the Blue Anchor events, they are genuine conversations, and that's what we do. So in my mind, Golden is just scared of actually having people not like him, which is the ironic part of him being a representative, and he won by a majority of people. So he knows that people do like him, so why doesn't he talk to them?
Could be that vote for Trump's horrible budget, but I saw that clip of you guys in the news, and I'm actually going to play it real quick for everyone here in case you guys haven't seen it.
Earlier this month, NBC News reported that the chair of the National Republican Congressional Committee advised lawmakers against holding in-person town halls. Now, voters here in Maine also want to talk to the people representing them in Washington. News Center Maine's Raya Wooten has more.
On preventing a government shutdown.
Regardless of their party affiliation, every Maine politician who serves in Washington, D.C. is currently catching heat.
We held an event for Jared Golden this past weekend. He declined to attend, but we saved him a chair.
New grassroots organizations have been regularly popping up, escalating concerns about President Donald Trump administration policies and what some say is spotty communication from Maine's members of Congress. Town halls are being held, whether politicians agree to show up or not.
A lot of the concerns...
Liam Kent from the Blue Anchor Project says people he's hearing from say they feel unheard.
Like, you have Tim Walz, you have Bernie Sanders, you have Elizabeth Warren, all these elected officials who are having in-person town halls and getting thousands of people to show up
Congresswoman Shelley Pingree says she's listening and planning in-person meetings where all are welcome. People are asking, where is Senator Susan Collins? Despite multiple requests for Senator Collins to attend the town hall, they haven't heard back. Collins previously shared that responding to every request isn't possible, as the Senate has been receiving as many as 1,600 calls per minute every day. Senator Angus King says his phone lines are open. However, after he, Senator Collins, and Representative Jared Golden all voted last week to approve a federal spending bill that cuts $13 billion in non-defense spending, some of the people who voted for them say they're losing faith.
I have a feeling that they're caving to political pressure, and it's not what we elected them for.
In Portland, Wyatt Wooten, News Center Maine.
We reached out to Senator Susan Collins' office about constituents' concerns this morning. Her office declined to interview. We reached out again an hour ago asking whether she was aware of the town hall. We are waiting to hear back.
Well, this is the most fascinating thing about all of that. When we did that, Pingree's office did not want to hold an in-person town hall. So what was happening is we discovered that she was holding a private closed-door town hall with a local Democratic committee here in the Mid-Coast Maine area, but they publicly promoted it. And they were claiming this is a members-only event. Members-only event.
Members
So
of what?
They're a club, I guess.
What's
But
a club?
This is the dumb part and the most kind of hypocritical and outrageous part of this. They are an official arm of the Maine Democratic Party, which is an official arm of the Democratic National Committee. Anything they do, except maybe if it's for an executive committee time, everything else has to be open. But they didn't want to. And so they claimed repeatedly that Pingree was invited to this town hall. But we all know that anytime this type of thing happens, the staff coordinates it because they don't just randomly show up to an event and just go along with the flow. So what this is most likely coming down from is the directive from the DNC stating you need to have town halls. And you see all these other representatives across the Northeast and the country, they're doing all these virtual town halls. So Pingree that was a virtual town hall. She was on Zoom. Then she's been doing these phone call town halls with like 6,000 and 13,000 people. And we know how those things work is there's about 10 to 12 people that are pre-selected to answer questions. And then nobody else can ask. I even actually attended one of them and nobody could really even ask a question that way. And then, which is really disheartening because, I mean, I voted for her. She is a great person. She's been in Congress for a long time. She's a very diehard Democrat. And it's disconcerting to see Democrats who have just so much potential try to do something. And I put faith in the fact that they say they're going to do in-person events, but we're also going to ensure that they do in-person events because you can say one thing, but we have to act. Then you move on to everybody else in the Maine congressional delegation who are just hiding flat out. You have Golden trying to say something. We've actually invited him to another town hall that we're hosting this Saturday on the Day of Action. And his response to us inviting was going in a WMTW article and the quote of calling an event like that buzzy. And then Angus King's people denied us within a day or so, and Collins's people have just ghosted us entirely. So that's just Maine. And then you look at all these other states. So what we're doing is now we're moving on to Stephen
I'm ready.
Lynch.
I have my Boston Scally cap on.
He already does. And let me dish a little bit of tea about Stephen Lynch. Dear Lord, this man drives me insane. So, first off, this man hates trans people. So he's a Democrat that hates trans people. Just put that in your mind.
You mean like Gavin Newsom?
He's a Jared Golden
kidding.
Gavin Newsom combination.
I don't know if we want to go there yet, Jordan.
No, to be
I
fair,
will drag this man to the bottom of the Boston
all
Harbor.
I will say
don't like
is,
him.
all Gavin Newsom proved with that stunt is that man will say anything and everything. If some consultant will tell him, it will make him president one day.
Here, sweet Gavin Newsom, if you happen to be watching this, I'm going to give you a free piece of consulting advice, save you a little bit of money. You don't want a yes man, you will lose.
Yep.
There you go.
So
I will
speaking
say
of
Anyways.
yes man.
I will say
Yeah,
this,
go ahead.
that with regards to Representative Pingree, her team did follow up with us, and she did actually make an announcement that she was going to do in-person town halls. Now, we haven't seen the official date and when and where of that yet, but she is absolutely listening and has heard the message, and she's the only one, though. And that's I think, what, as Liam says, it's heartening. We're hopeful.
And I gotta say, I mean, good to hear that Representative Pingree is at least starting to be receptive. But
Right.
as for the rest of them, and especially the ones that voted for the Trump budget, in the words of Senator Susan Collins, I really have some concerns here. And
hold on. I'm deeply concerned about the direction
Oh my
that
God.
this is heading. You're welcome. I hate her. Anywho,
Yeah.
so let's
this
move on
Lynch
back
dude,
to
wait a
Stephen.
minute, but this Lynch dude,
Yeah.
let's go back to Massachusetts for a minute.
That's what I'm
This
trying to get
guy,
back to.
What's the act again? Refresh
So
my
okay,
memory.
so first off,
Yeah.
he hates trans people and did some votes for that. So then this second or third day after Trump got inaugurated, he voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which in essence allows ICE to do all the insane Gestapo stuff they're doing. So then, come about a week or so ago, we have the person that got arrested in Cambridge. I'm pretty sure that's where it was located.
In front of her apartment,
And which is
Tufts.
horrible. Yeah, Tufts, which is horrible and should not have happened. But this is the thing. Lynch is now crying foul and trying to stand up for this person, which is like, okay, but then you think about it and you look back in and you're like, weren't you the person that enabled this? So
Because
that's the
people
type
are
of thing we're
pissed.
dealing
I
with.
mean, and you don't piss off people in Boston, number one.
Oh, no.
Especially with that kind of thing. I don't know if you all saw the demonstration they had just a few weeks ago, but it's like, don't piss off Boston.
I want to take it back to something actually Senator Booker said in his speech when he was giving that acknowledgement to all of the staffers who helped him put together everything behind the scenes that was needed to make all that happen. And I think similar with these town halls, as much as the representative is obviously the face and ultimately the buck stops with them, it's also on the people they hire to build the infrastructure that allows them to represent their constituents. And Shayna, I want to get your take on this here because I know you work on the other side of that coin, handling constituent services in local government. And I want to know, first off, what you're hearing locally from constituents about what's happening now, and also behind the scenes, what is done with these complaints and these comments and these questions that so many constituents think are going nowhere.
Yeah, so I do constituent services and outreach for an elected government office. That is what I do during the day. So I see the other side of this. And here's the thing. If you have a good functioning office and good staff, all of those complaints that come in and the opinions that people have, one, someone should reply to them. And two, you're going to get more than just like a regular, stock email answer. The way that we do it is, I know that the stat in the clip that we just saw was 1,600 calls per minute. I work in a much smaller level of government, but we get about that, actually sometimes double that in emails and phone calls per day on things. And what we do is we go through every single complaint or opinion or call for support for different issues, and we organize them digitally into, different issues, and we give you a reply. And we think about how we should reply to you, and every single person gets a reply for exactly what they emailed us about. And sometimes people email us about more than one issue. Well, then guess what? You either get one email with all of the replies in it, or you get multiple long, in-depth replies. If you call the office during office hours, we answer the phone and we talk to you and we pass your information along and we get back to you, whether you ask us to get back to you by phone, email, or mail. I had someone call me from a library phone once and told me that they don't own a single piece of technology, but that they wanted to call and voice their opinion for the elected I work for to vote on a certain bill, and that they wanted an update, and the only way I could reach them was by mail. So we did that. And they sent us, we send letters back and forth. That is what a good government office should do. And for the government offices, especially on a federal level, that say they don't have enough money to staff them, that's wrong. They do. If you didn't know this, it's probably going to tick off a lot of electeds on the federal level if they haven't shared this, is that they get a budget for what they're going to spend on their office. And if they choose not to spend it on staff, they spend it on other things, or they keep it for themselves. It's different for different states and on state levels and on city and municipal levels, but federally, that's where your tax dollars, potentially could be going. And just to wrap this up, your government office should be getting back to you. And if you're seeing that there's issues that are not getting resolved on the federal level, make sure you reach out to your local electeds because they can do a lot more than you think. And not just on the city level, the state level. That's something that I know that all of us here, I can very confidently speak for all of us, that we want people to reach out to their local elected officials on the state level and on the city level, on the county level. Those electeds can do so much more for you than you think. And as much as federal legislation can impact you, your everyday lives, your day-to-day lives are impacted more by state and municipal and county legislation. Fun fact. So no, yeah, your legislators should be doing better for you. Your legislators work for you. That's something that I know we've talked about a lot. And if I haven't said it already on one of these podcast episodes, if you know me, you've heard me say this a million times. When you work in politics, whoever the elected is, think of a pyramid, but then we're going to flip it upside down. You cannot do everything without everyone else. Everything that everyone else does feeds into what you do. You represent those people and you cannot stay up on your point and tip one way or the other. You have to stay up on your point, and you cannot do that without the help of everyone else to balance things out. That is an analogy that I have used since the beginning of my career, and I will continue to do that. And it's something that I tell every single elected official that I meet. And every single person who asks how government should work, I explain that to them because that is how our government should work.
Yeah, and if for some reason you reach out to your local elected officials and you don't hear back from them, you let us know at New Digital Now. If it is someone,
let us know too.
I was going to say, if it's someone in the Northeast, we'll send it right to the Blue Anchor Project so they can take care of them. If not, if it's someone somewhere else in the country, we are rapidly looking to expand our partner network with more organizations like the Blue Anchor Project to spread our reach across the whole country and make sure that supporters like you can be heard no matter where you are.
I think Jerry's phone died.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Just one more slight thing that I wanted to add on to that is what's fascinating is we've really only been on the ground actively for like the past 3-ish weeks. And we've already gotten this insane amount of response to the point that the main Democratic Party is actively trying to target us and get rid of us. And
we're not going to let that happen. Don't worry.
No, the big thing that's going on here is they're trying to protect their own. And they are doing a very bad job at it. And they don't want to talk to people because they're scared and they don't want to be held accountable for their actions. But we're not going to let that go. I definitely know we aren't at Blue Anchor because they need to be held accountable for their actions, whether they like it or not. That's what they voted. That's what you got voted in office for. And if you're not going to live up to that, as this guy Chris that I know in town that I saw at the local supermarket said, we hired you and we can effing fire you anytime that we want. And he's a vet. I love that man. And that's the big thing is we're going to go around. We have been, and we're going to keep going. And it's amazing with a little bit of action, a little bit of tenacity, and just asking the simple question of why are you hiding? Why aren't you talking to people? Really makes them just lose their minds.
There's
there's
always
so much other things that happened, but that's the surface level.
There's always been so much power in numbers and in collective action. Something that I always like to bring up when we talk about collective action, and like just anytime I can, because I think it's really important, is that this idea of collective action and what we see as like the modern form of protesting started a lot in Georgia with community organizing amongst Black communities during the Civil Rights era. And that's something that a lot of people tend to forget. And I'm going to say something super uncomfortable out loud. Politics, especially behind the scenes, is incredibly white. And that's something that it shouldn't be, because organizing and community organizing came from minority groups, and it still stems from minority groups. And this is a job that I love and that I'm so privileged to be able to do. And I never really feel like I ever have to go to work, and that this is just a job, something I get to do and I get to help people with. But I wanted to make sure that we recognize and talk about where all of this came from, the decades and decades of community organizing that members of that Black community did in Georgia are the reason that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock both got elected in Georgia. And I'm mostly speaking about Georgia because that's one of the elections I worked on. And wherever I go to work and whatever state I go to work on, I do my best to learn about the communities that I am going to be a part of. Same with when I went to Montana. Montana is nothing without the Indigenous community. And Montana is actually one of the last states that still has any amount of respect and a large amount of Indigenous and Native American communities. They're not being treated very well right now by the heinous governor, Greg Gianforte, which...
You mean Greg from New Jersey?
Greg from New Jersey, and also if that name sounds familiar, yes, he is the guy that body slammed a reporter who asked him a question he didn't like. So I just always think it's really important to talk about collective action and where it came from and how we can continue to honor that and propel that type of protesting. It's what works. The action has always made a difference. And it was really nice seeing the collective action today with Cory Booker breaking the record for the longest filibuster. But this needs to go beyond the Senate chamber, which is an incredibly limiting place for what can happen during a speech and for who can go in and see that. And we need more people to do that. And we need more people to start standing up and having town halls like Blue Anchor Project is. And if you know about your local Democratic group, go to their, monthly or weekly meetings. And if you didn't realize you had a Democratic group, go look on Facebook and look up your blank county Democrat group or blank city Democrat group. I guarantee you will find people. Don't stop calling.
And reach out to us as well.
Yeah,
We
reach
will
out to
more
us.
than happy to let you know. We are actually compiling a list of orgs that do this stuff. And if people aren't, we're going. Our plan is to go to all 47 congressional districts in New England and New York by the end of 2025. And yes, it's ambitious, but we're going to do it. And it's
We'll help
important
make it happen.
because everybody needs to be heard. Oh, and if we get that done, I'm going to pop down to New Jersey. Is that body slam guy still in office?
Yeah, he's
Greg
in Montana.
Greg
He carpetbagged
Gianforte
from New Jersey.
Yeah, Greg Gianforte is currently the governor of Montana. He previously was, at the time, the sole congressman that Montana had.
I was really hoping he was in New Jersey because then I would have gone.
Nah, not anymore.
Besides that, I'm very disappointed. Sorry, I can't help myself.
And with that, New Digital Now is building the technology to do this kind of community organizing on a national digital scale because we were built with the idea of making collective action online as easy as possible. So with that, we are going to answer some supporter questions, which if you have any questions for us or for the Blue Anchor Project, make sure to click the link in the description to submit them for the Q&A. We read everything and feature the questions that are most frequently asked. One of which was in reference to the detentions of people for protest activities and potentially violent activities. Someone asked, why aren't they deporting white supremacists for their hate activities and speech too?
Bro, they should be.
You know what? I don't know about that, Shayna. I mean, as nice as that feels, think about the catharsis they are feeling deporting people on the mere suspicion of anything right now and how many they're getting wrong. And my personal belief is that everybody deserves due process. I mean, if you truly do support terrorists, by the way, and if a judge finds in court that you support terrorists on a green card, I mean, I will say this, it might be a hot take on the left, but there are hundreds of millions of people who want to come here legally, who want to live the American dream and work hard. And if a judge finds that you support terrorists, then your visa should be canceled. You should not be sent to El Salvador. You should not be sent to a hard labor camp. You should be just denied the visa you applied for and humanely sent home to where you applied for that visa from. But all of this should be done legally, humanely, and with due process, whether that's people we agree with or people we disagree with.
Exactly. And the big thing, just to answer that question, why they don't do it is because they are all that. And they don't want to arrest themselves and kick themselves out of the country because they're trying to destroy this country and bring it down to their sad little level of understanding. And their only way of being good in life is putting everybody down to make themselves feel better, even though they're an inch tall. And I think the big thing also is to point out that a lot of these people are going to Gitmo. And Gitmo is quite literally turning into the labor camp. And it is very disheartening to see us, in essence, become Stalinism, Stalin's version of America, tie in a little bit of Hitler. And we are probably going to keep going further down that path if we don't do anything to stop it. I mean, we have the moron there saying, I want to do a third term. Sure, yeah. Really? You know, Steve Bannon, the man is an asshole, but his media playbook game is spot on of making everybody lose their collective marbles. But at the same time, they are living out their dream. You know, I've been rewatching The Newsroom, of all things.
Ooh, I need to watch that.
And it's really interesting to see them talk about all this stuff in the context of it being a decade later. And it's like you see Mike Lee being elected talking about getting rid of the 14th Amendment. You see like the Tea Party movement and all of this stuff. And it was right in front of our eyes every single day, and we did nothing about it because we were scared of offending people. We are scared of taking action.
Yeah.
And the Democrats need to not give a fuck anymore. We need to not care. We need to be brutal, and we need to do whatever it can to take back our country.
We need to give exactly one fuck, and that exact one fuck we need to give is we cannot be violent about it because
Exactly.
Yes. And I want to make sure we make that clear because I know a lot of people are...
Sorry, I thought that was assumed.
You know, you would think that, but that slope is very slippery these days, and to be fair, I'm also saying that because I don't trust this government not to prosecute people for said speech, and I want to make sure that when we're in a court of law, the jury of our peers knows that we are talking about nonviolence here. But
I'd love to add this quote from Pamela Stevenson, who today just announced that she is going to be running for Mitch McConnell's seat in the Kentucky Senate. Senate in Kentucky. And this quote that I'm going to read was originally from her opposition from a speech she gave about a House bill that was going through the Kentucky legislature where she currently is right now, which would have prohibited gender-affirming care for transgender youth. But I feel like this quote really fits right now. So to quote Pamela Stevenson, "We have created an environment of hate, and then we look at them like there's something wrong with them. First you hated Black people, then you hated Jews, and now you're hating everybody. So the question is, when it's the only people left, will you hate yourself?"
Wow.
I think that's
good.
Something that's going to really resonate with a lot of people. And I think that, like I said, even though that quote was originally part of a speech in 2023 for opposition of banning gender-affirming care for youth, we're going through the same thing right now where all the people on top who are white and white supremacists at that are trying to get rid of everyone that doesn't look like them, that they don't like. But if you don't like anybody, how can you like yourself? I just thought that was a really good quote that would resonate with the question that one of our supporters asked.
Oh yeah, no, that is very inspiring, and I think it also speaks to how we have to be bold but intentional in how we choose to resist. And I think Senator Booker's brave, bold speech was a perfect example because he made noise. He got in some good trouble, but you watched it and it was nothing but love and affirmation for the people who truly care about this country. And he reached across the aisle. He complimented his Republican colleagues for the common ground they held. And I think that's important. And it leads to a second question that a lot of our supporters have actually been asking, because I think it's a creative and novel way to resist Trump and Doge. People have been asking, can the American people file a class action lawsuit against Doge and Trump? And I know there are several class action lawsuits that federal workers have been filing, and a lot of various lawsuits that different interest groups have been filing based on different actions. That being said, I think we will, as we grow the New Digital Now program, keep an eye on those lawsuits because I know a lot of our supporters want to see them, and we will find ways to connect supporters like you with the lawyers who are doing the work and help you support them if that's necessary, because I think the scariest thing here is Trump has managed to pressure big law firms into not taking these cases pro bono.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really interesting question. And from the very little bit about how I know how like courts and laws work, in terms of like a class action lawsuit against the federal government from people who have not like lost their jobs who are working there, I don't think that is feasible. But I do know, like Jordan said, there are lots of organizations and interest groups who have filed so many lawsuits against the government, like Planned Parenthood and the ACLU. They have lots of also lawsuits against different states and cities for different things. That's kind of what those groups are for. And there's so many other groups that do that as well. Not just those two. They're just the first two that came to my head because there's like hundreds of groups that do that. But that's a really interesting question. And if you want to continue to fight the fascists that are running our country. Make sure that, like I said, keep reaching out to your local electeds, keep filling out the petitions on our website, make your own petitions, send them out, reach out to organizations like Blue Anchor Project. We are here to help raise your voices. And I hope we've been doing that justice. We've really been trying to, and it's our year anniversary when we're filming this. And I really hope that we've been doing all of our supporters justice in our work.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that we could not do any of what we do without you. It is all thanks to your support that we've been able to build this incredible platform to prop up organizations like the Blue Anchor Project, who have made a real impact on the ground, and we are only looking to grow from here. This has been a very successful proof of concept, but now it's time to get this technology to a place where it can help every Democrat across the country, and that will only happen with your continued support. So we want to hear from you. Let us know what you think.
Actually, hold on. I have some questions that people have asked us too, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah,
popping.
absolutely.
So,
of course.
Just to plug us, if you go to blueanchorproject.com/get-involved, you will see that there are many ways to be able to get involved with us. And one of those ways is to be able to take our anonymous survey. And through there, you can voice your concerns about what matters most to you, what you would like to say to your representatives, and if you would like us to send it. So we are actually collecting these responses and sending it to these people. And yes, and so some of the biggest concerns right now are Elon Musk chainsaw, current government, worrying about what Trump and Musk are going to do next, disruption of Social Security and Medicare, authoritarianism and ineffective public action to date, fascism, and, quote, I want Trump and his cabinet removed immediately and impeached.
Seeing a lot of that on our end, too.
I'm only hearing truth right now.
Yes. So one thing I'm going to read to you, and I'd love to get your reaction on this, is some of the things that they want us to send to their representatives. So someone said, keep fighting and hold your values. Someone else said, do the right thing that you are responsible to your constituents for. Another one said, fight for us. Trump and his cabinet are grifters and cannot continue to do what they are doing. We need to take to the streets to protect voting, Social Security, education, healthcare, jobs, the planet, and we need to impeach them all. You are trustworthy and you are brave Americans, but we voted for you and we want you to do your job.
My initial reaction is we're with you, we hear you, and there's a fair amount of people listening to what you're saying and who are taking a lot of consideration for what you're saying and how we can make things better immediately and in the short term and in the long term. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and we are among those groups, and we are working to make sure that all of our representatives stay accountable to you, the people, and that we build the technology to not only allow you to share your voice, but to amplify it so much that our Democratic leaders literally cannot afford to ignore you anymore. But all of that only happens with your support, and we are so incredibly grateful for your support over the last year that has allowed us to grow this from a concept of a plan into a really unique approach to doing organizing differently, bringing together the fundraising aspect that nobody really loves, but we all have to do because we don't have Elon's millions.
You love it. That's how you think, Jordan.
Oh my God.
I think
here's the thing. Yeah. I love doing the work to make it better. I absolutely hate the way most of us do it, but
and that's why
I do enjoy the puzzle of fixing the absolute mess I found myself in, which is why I do this work so you don't have to. But if you want to make sure that someone's doing this work and someone who is actually willing to get in front of the camera and tell you about it instead of lying about a fake 5X match and you don't know where the money's going, stick around. Let us know what you think. We look forward to hearing from you. And Liam, thank you so much for joining us.
And one last plug, because I have to. And we are so incredibly grateful for all the support we have gotten. I mean, we were founded after the election, and we've really only been going, God, I think it's April? So about 5-6-ish months. And we're already making Congress people squirm and their staff lose their collective marbles and make mistakes that 2-year-olds make. Don't get me started on the hilarity of that. But we are collectively making a lot of difference. And I have to say, when I first approached Jordan and Shayna about doing this type of partnership, I didn't realize just the potential it could have. And I don't think any of us did. And I'm so excited to see what we have accomplished so far in such a short amount of time. And I just want to say thank you all for giving us the ability to do the work that we're doing, and to please consider helping us keep the work going. We are trying to raise $25,000 by the end of this week to be able to keep going into these other districts, because we got to keep the momentum going, and we're only going to be facing more and more resistance and more sophisticated resistance, because they are smart, just depends upon where you go, and we just need to ensure that we have every ability to be able to have your voice heard and listened, because they're doing everything they can to silence your voice. So thank you so much for having us on here, and let's continue the good fight and continue getting into some good trouble now.
Yeah.
Of course, and we are so happy to have you. We cannot wait to see what you do next, because this is only the beginning for all of us, and I can't wait to make a real impact in 2026, 2028, and beyond.
Trust me, we will.
Yeah,
if I have anything to do with it, we will ensure that I'm not going to hinge my bets on it, but I have a sneaky suspicion we can do quite a bit of ding to Susan Collins's ability to run again. So
yeah, and if you want to hear more about that, stay tuned.
Exactly.
And you might see some familiar faces running for office during that time period too. We'll see you next time.
Ooh,
see you next time.
Okay, bye.